Hey guys, welcome back to Honkai Star Rail. In today's video, we're going to be doing our Xuan guide. Now, this one is going to be focused on the supportive Xuan, not the crit build of Xuan. In case that's something you're looking at, we can definitely touch on that in the future. I will mention it, but it's not the main focus. Now, we also do have the new code that comes along with every new character, so I'll leave that in the description so you can go ahead and get the free goodies. But we're going to look at Lycones, Traces, Relics, touch on Eidolons, and look at teams and playstyle for her. So let's get into it. So first of all, we have her basic attack, which is going to deal damage based on her max HP, which is nice because she is a unit that you're going to stack a lot of HP on. So she does get a little bit of damaging advantage out of that basic attack with the HP scaling. Next up is her skill. For this one, she's going to activate the Matrix of Prescience, which is going to put like a field on the battlefield. And this lasts for 3 turns. And what happens is 65% of the damage that any ally would receive before it's mitigated by shields will be transferred over to Xuan. Now, on top of that, while this field is active, all team members will also have their max HP increased by 5.2% of Xuan's max HP. That 5.2% is at level 8 on the skill, and then also have their crit rate increased by 10.5%, also at level 8, so you can go 2 levels beyond that as well. And then if Xuan is knocked down, the Matrix of Prescience will be dispelled. We do also have 2 traces that tie into the skill. The first one being that if the field is already up, meaning that the Matrix of Prescience is already active and she uses her skill, she'll generate an extra 20 energy. Now, this is important because if you just used her skill to get it up for 3 turns and then did 3 basic attacks, you would then have a cycle where you'd have a period between her 3rd basic attack and her next skill where the field, the Matrix of Prescience, wasn't active. So by doing this, you will want to use skill, basic, skill in a general rotation so that basically when there is 1 turn left on the field, you want to use the skill. You'll get that extra energy just so you refresh it and it doesn't disappear. Now, the next trace is very long-winded in the wording, but essentially what happens is if an enemy is to use a control effect, in that attack where they have the control effect that can be applied, all allies will resist it, but you only get 1 activation of that until you use the Matrix of Prescience again, being her skill, and then you will get 1 application again. So each time you use her skill, you get 1 application of that resistance. For her talent, while she's alive, she's going to reduce the damage taken by allies by 16%. That 16% is at level 8 on the talent. Then if she drops below 50% health without dying, if she dies at 1 proc, but if she drops below 50% health, she will regain health equal to 87% of the health that she has lost. Now, she does get 1 stack of this at base, and she can go up to 2 stacks. And when we look at her ultimate, that's how we're going to get additional stacks. So now we have the ultimate. This thing costs 135 energy, and it's going to deal quantum damage to all enemies equal to 90% of Xuan's max HP, and that is at level 8 once again. On top of that, it's going to give her 1 additional stack of her talent, so 1 of those extra self heals. Now with a trace, which we also have on this one, when she uses her ultimate, she's also going to heal all allies by 5% of her own max HP plus 133. And finally, we have her talent. Now when she uses this, she's going to put a barrier around, and you can freely swap characters and that barrier will stay. And what this does is it means enemies won't attack you. They can't make you enter combat with them. But when you do enter combat with an enemy while this is active, once again, you can use another character to enter combat and still get this effect. She will activate the Matrix of Prescience for 2 turns. As we look to her traces, all of the abilities that she unlocks, you want to grab up. We're getting those 2 that apply to her skill, and then the other one that applies to her ultimate, which is going to heal allies, which is very important if you go to run her as a solo sustained unit. Now, as for her abilities, the ones I recommend upgrading first if you're looking at her as a supportive unit are the talent and the skill. They're going to give you that mitigation and buffing that she applies. Now, the ult and basic attack are more if you're looking at increasing her damage. So if you're not playing her on a damage build and you don't really care about the damage she deals, you don't really have to worry about these ones at all, and you can save the resources. But once again, she does have max HP scaling, so she does do a decent little bit of damage. Then on top of that, when we look at the stats that she has provided to her, she has HP and some effect resistance, which are both really nice in that supportive type build. Then she does have a lot of crit in her traces as well, which early on, if you're just using her as that supportive type character, you don't have to worry about picking up all the crit ones, just the ones on the way to getting more HP and stuff like that. But as you build her further and further and you get better gear, you can look towards unlocking that crit to give her a bit more damage, supportive damage in your team. Next up, we're looking at Relics. Now, with Relics, I want to say that she's pretty flexible in the build, and the build you use depends on how hard the content is and what substats you have, essentially. So there are many sets that she can get away with a two-piece of, and you're really just trying to balance out getting her speed with HP and defense to make her tanky. Now, maxing out all HP is obviously going to make her heal her allies more in those type of situations, and also deal more damage for the HP base. Defense is going to mitigate the damage that she takes as well, which is going to help her survive. So there is no one set build for Xuan. What I recommend going is getting at least speed on the boots or energy regen on the rope, especially if she's a solo sustain, because you do need to use those ults to get the healing, and then mixing around the rest of them and maybe putting a defense slot on if you're trying to mitigate the damage that she's receiving, but I wouldn't take more than one defense slot. But then on top of that, you also have the consideration of the sets you're taking based on what stats you have on the different sets. So the sets I would consider, the three I like the most are the Guard of Wuthering Snow. So this one gives us a two-piece, gives us reduced damage taken. Other two-piece that's really nice is the new one that you have with the Disciples, giving the extra max HP. If you're looking for a bit of extra speed, then you've got the two-piece of the Messengers. And then also you can look to, if you've just got good stats on it, the Knight of Purity, just because it does have that defense. And like I said, we're looking to balance out stats between speed, HP, defense. Also, once again, you can consider energy regeneration, and then effect resistance is the other thing that we're looking into. But let's jump into it and take a look at what we can put on our pieces. So when we look towards the feet, basically you're looking at speed, HP, or defense. Once again, you don't want to have more than one defense piece, but you know, you can swap it around to make it balance out anywhere that you're really looking. Me personally, I'm always a speed person. I like having speed. It's just the way I personally build my characters, but it's completely up to you. Body, you got HP and defense. Once again, don't stack two defenses, and you're pretty much good on that one. You can go full HP build as well. Like I said, she's pretty flexible. Then when we jump into the planner ornaments, there's two main ones that I look at. We've got the Fleet of the Ageless, which is really nice because we get the max HP, and then we also get the buff for our allies. And then the other one is the Broken Keel. Now this one's going to give her effect resistance, which is nice, but also for the buffing effect, increasing all allies crit damage, which is also going to be really nice. And honestly, reaching that 30% resistance isn't the hardest thing out there. So those are the two I recommend for them. As for what stats to go for them, on them, the rope, you can go for the energy regeneration, the HP, or the defense once again, and then the planisphere will be that HP or defense. Now, like I said, I mentioned defense in all of them. I just want to reiterate this point. Don't go stacking more than one defense on a slot. And if you have a ton of defense substats and maybe you've got the defense two-piece set bonus, then you might not need it at all. It's just a matter of balancing her out, making her tanky, stacking that HP as well, and then making her a little bit quick or having the energy regeneration so she can use her ult more often. And then just to reiterate, the substats that we're looking for are speed, HP, defense, and effect resistance, and that is for the supportive build. Now there is a crit build which you kind of build the same as you build a blade. You're looking for that HP, crit rate, crit damage, some speed if you want, but I'm not going to go deep into that one at the moment, but that is definitely a build you can do. But like I said, she's very flexible on her build and where you bring it. It depends. Now that we've got the new Swarm Simulated Universe, you know, you can build her on that real tanky support type build and run her as a dual support unit. However, if you've got a pretty stacked account, you're looking Memory of Chaos, you can run her once again as that tanky unit. Maybe you bring a bit of damage and you run her as a solo sustain and you try and go for speed clears. It's just the situation and what you have really depends on what you're going to build her with. As we look into light cones, her signature light cone is crazy for her. We're getting HP, energy regeneration, damage for allies, and also a big heal at each wave of the fight. Now, when we look at waves, it's not cycles. I've seen some people talk about cycles. It is waves, being when you kill all the enemies on the board and the next group of them run up, that is the wave. So that is when she is healing, but honestly, it's a pretty stacked light cone. But if you're not pulling for her signature light cone, we do have a great 5-star option in Herder's store, which is Texture of Memories. This one's just an all-round good one, helping with her survival, because at the end of the day, she does really need to survive, especially if she is solo sustaining. Now, I also wanted to touch on Moment of Victory, because this one can be good situationally. A lot of stuff with Fu Xuan really depends on the situation you're in, what kind of enemies you're fighting against, and what kind of investment you have into your team. But this one, giving her that extra aggro plus defensive stats is going to be nice to help keep the team alive if she is a solo sustain unit. And extending on that principle, we also have Landau's choice for a 4-star, once again giving her that aggro but also giving her the damage mitigation. Next, we're quickly going to touch on her Eidolons. Now, if you're free to play, she is going to work fantastic at 1 copy, so don't feel pressured into doing it. But if you do decide to go for Eidolons, they are quite nice. At 1, giving her team a crit damage buff is always going to be fantastic. Level 2 is giving her a battle res, kind of similar to what Bailu does, but with this one, if 1 attack kills 3 allies, it will revive all of them, which is quite fantastic. Then at level 4, we're going to get extra energy when allies under the Matrix of Prescience are attacked. And level 6, we ain't going to read through the whole thing. Basically, it makes her deal big damage. Next up, we're going to take a look at teams. Now, the Mono Quantum is something that I have been looking forward to forever. We have a couple versions of it. Basically, you have Fu Xuan. Now, Fu Xuan can be played as a solo sustain or as a defending unit in a team with a healer. Just keep in mind, it depends on the content and how far advanced your account is, because even if your account is pretty beefy, if they keep making harder content like the Swarm, then eventually you will need a really strong defender and healer in the same team. But we'll take a look at this first one, which is Staple. If you pulled for Silverwolf like myself, then you can run a Mono Quantum team where basically you use Silverwolf to make any enemy you fight weak against Quantum, and GG's. That's pretty much the gist of it. Now, the Staple one is going to be like Fu Xuan, Silverwolf, Lynx, and QQ as your damage dealer if you didn't pull Zilla. However, you can swap QQ for Zilla. Now, if your account is at a point and you're in content where you don't need that extra sustain unit and you can just solo sustain with Fu Xuan because her ultimate's going to heal those allies and she's going to take a bulk of the damage, then you can run it with Zilla. And hey, you can test out my theory, which is Zilla as a supportive unit for QQ, but that is because I am too much of a QQ fan. But you can play this either way. You can use QQ as the supportive type unit, or you can use Zilla as the supportive type unit. I know most people are using Zilla as the main DPS, but I'm built different. All right, so moving on past that, she's really just a splashable sustain unit that can pair with just about anyone in the game. So I've thrown a couple examples together because I know I wanted to go through a couple of the limited characters because, you know, people have them and they want a team to use them. So let's say you're a Jing Yuan person. You got your Jing Yuan. Fu Xuan obviously going to be great. Also, that the way that she prevents CC is going to be really nice for Jing Yuan, because him getting CC'd is just the worst thing in the world. But, you know, she's providing that crit as well, which is also really nice. So helping these characters out. And with Jing Yuan, literally, if you look at this team, this is the core. Jing Yuan, he works really well with Ting Yun. So we've got Jing Yuan and Ting Yun in together. Normally you're taking this type of team against a lightning weak enemy. Then your final slot, once again, it just comes down to what you have and where your account's at. You can fill this in with a healer if you think you need extra heals, or you can put in another support like a Bronya or something and make it hyper carry, or you can sub in another DPS for break or whatever you want to do. That last slot is a complete flex slot. Another example is, you know, if you're a blade main, if you pull that blade, then you just bring the blade with the Bronya, and once again, that's a good core. You've got your defensive sustain unit, you've got your core damaging center with the Bronya and blade, and then you just pick what you want in that last slot. Whether you want another buffing unit, whether you want a healer, just depends on your situation. Like I said, she is very easy to build teams around because she's either the defensive unit or the solo sustain unit, and you bring whatever pairs well. Basically, it's more about the rest of the team synergy, and just plonking her in as that defensive unit is the way I look at it. She's very splashable, she's very strong, and she's usable in just about any team. So that is going to be it for Fu Xuan, a really strong preservation unit that also acts as a buffer and a healer in one. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.